Okay, here is another driving edition of the Ham Radio 101. I am Mike WX0MIK. And yeah, it's dark out now, but driving home from my bowling and nothing else to do but record, right? So let's continue on with this series talking about taking your ham radio test. So now I covered online testing in a previous video. It should be like 2 videos back if you look at my list. But now let's talk about in-person testing. It's a little bit easier, but it's also a little bit harder. And that kind of depends upon where you live. If you live in a place like San Diego, there are in-person testing places all the time, multiple times a month, covering several different areas around that general area. You should be able to easily find a test that kind of works with your time frame and make that work. That's just one example. I'm sure there's other examples like New York and some of those big cities. When you get into, let's call rural Midwest, you're going to have to travel. And you might be traveling up to an hour or two just to take your test. That becomes a challenge. But that's where I prefer online testing. But let's take a step back. And how do you find a test? Well, sometimes you're in a local club. So if you look up for your local club, they will generally have some sort of a test on a semi-regular basis. It might be every month. It might be every quarter. Everyone's a little bit different, but you can look at your local club. Well, how do I find my local club? ARRL.org, I think it is. They do have a listing of A, test sessions, but also B, clubs. However, that's not a complete list. What I prefer to do is type in Ham Radio Club and then type in your city first, because you just never know. And if that doesn't work, pick the nearest bigger city. So if you have like a couple thousand people, but you have a city that is, let's say 20,000 people, that is 15 minutes away, Google that city. Try that one out. It's very likely you should find one within about an hour and a half drive. However, depends on how remote you are. So with that, find that club, see if they have any testing sessions on their website. Some clubs don't even have websites anymore, which makes it even more difficult. But ARRL has a directory of tests, and some are remote, some are in person. You should be able to easily figure out from their description which it is, and then you follow their directions. In some cases, they want to know if you want to come, and in other cases, they just say just show up. Usually, they say walk-ins welcome. Sometimes they don't, so make sure you read the description out there. That's probably going to be your source of the best source to find sessions. And then you just find which city is closest to you, or the city that you're willing to travel to. Again, that isn't necessarily easy all the time, but that is how you do that. So now, how do you test? Again, each one's a little bit different, but in general, you show up. You'll probably have to fill out a form. They may ask you to fill out a couple forms ahead of time even. And then that will be your 605 that you fill out. That's just a FCC form number. So they'll have you pre-fill that out. They'll give you a test booklet and a sheet of paper to mark your answers on. Just like online testing, you are allowed a calculator, which you got to prove is clear, a plain sheet of paper, which they may even provide, and a pencil, which again they may provide. But I always would say take one along with you anyway. And then from there, once they tell you to start, you can open the book, you can start answering all the questions. When you're done, you give it to them, they grade it, they tell you if you pass or fail. That's the old school paper way. There's also a new school electronic way, or a hybrid of such. In the hybrid environment, they would still give you some sort of a booklet with some sort of a bubble fill, but they will grade it electronically, and they will actually use a website, a piece of software, in order to process all your answers and process your paperwork. And the second form, they will actually hand you a tablet or some sort of device and say, here's your test, we will get you logged in, and then you can go ahead and start testing. That was much more similar to the electronic testing, but it's in person. So there's a little bit of variety in there, but ultimately you show up, they check you in, you potentially might have to fill out some paperwork, and then you take the test. Once you're done with the test, you hand everything in. They may tell you your score, they may not tell you your score, they may not be able to tell you your score, but they'll tell you if you pass or fail. And then retesting is usually always an option, and you just typically have to pay a second fee in order to retest. In case you fail the first time, maybe it's an extra hard one, things like that. So otherwise, it's very similar. I believe on TikTok here, quite a while ago, I did something about how to study for your test. I might renew that here so it's updated and more recent. But ultimately, get out there, study, get your confidence that you feel like you're going to pass. Find a location to test, whether it's remote or whether it is in person, and then take that opportunity to take your test and pass. And I'm sure, again, I've done videos what to do next, but I'll cover that in the next video sometime soon here. So 7-3 from WX0MIK, and get yourself on the air.